the lead facilitator for this session, and I will be supported by my wonderful colleague, Yanis. Just to say quickly, this session will be recorded. So if you know that you're not keen for your face to be shown, please, it's up to you to switch off your camera, but we would really appreciate that people have their cameras on, because it would be a very, very purely an interactive session. So we look forward to a wonderful discussions. Before we go into the introductions, I just wanted to say that we're going to be talking about 3 key areas during the time of our discussion. And the areas will center around highlighting the regional challenges that we have, looking at problem solving, and also talking about the effectiveness and the power of networking. So I'll hand over to my co-chair now, Yanis, to support with the introductions. Over to you, Yanis.
Thank you, Justina. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yannis Anagnostopoulos. I work at the NHS Health Research Authority as a program manager. And I would like to thank all of our wonderful session facilitators, 10 in total. And I'd like to ask them to quickly introduce themselves. Nick, if you could say your name, where you work and where you're based.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Nick Hamilton. I'm a Programme Assurance Manager with the South East Coast Ambulance Service based out of Crawley in the South Coast.
Thank you, Nick. Gareth?
Thanks, Yanis. Yeah, Gareth Nichols, Head of PMO at University Hospitals of North Midlands and the Regional Lead for the for the Midlands, sorry.
Thank you, Gareth. Rachel?
Hi, Rachel Pye. I'm a project manager at NHS Digital, officially based in Leeds, but obviously covering the whole of England.
Thank you, Rachel. Phil?
Hi, all. Phil Ryan. I'm part of the South East Network, one of the champions, PMO lead for Surrey and Borders Trust.
Thank you. And I can see Jantinda.
Hi, I'm Jatinder Singh. I work for NHS Arden and Gem Commissioning Support Unit. I cover the Midlands area. A transformation program manager.
Thank you very much. Jocelyn?
Hi everyone, I'm Jocelyn Shaw. I'm a change manager within the Corporate Portfolio Office at Health Education England, officially based in Leeds, but obviously currently working from home.
Great, thank you. Agata?
Hi, my name is Agata Spierkot. I work at Primary Care 24 in Liverpool as Project Support Manager.
Thank you. Christine?
Hi, I'm Christine Twigg, Project Futures Programme Administrator working with Joss at the Portfolio Management Office in Leeds. Thank you.
Thank you. Henry?
Hi, I'm Henry Wilson. I am Head of Transformation Programme at University College London Hospitals, and I'm also the Network Lead for London.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Yard. I work for Norfolk Community Health and Care and based in the east of England, where I'm one of the leads.
Great. Thank you very much.
That's great. And I'm Justina Oloitu. Like I said, I am the Mental Health Workforce Transformation Lead for working with Northwest London CCG, so based in London. Thank you so much, Yanis, for that and for the whistle stop introductions. So we are going to go straight to looking at what regional challenges we have in our area. What are the problems that we have at the moment that we are trying to fix? So if we have a discussion around that, and also if people could pop things in the chat, that would be really helpful. Comments, thoughts, challenges in the chat, and we'll have our colleagues Pam and Agatha, I think, who's going to look through the chat for us to see what we have, what people are saying on the chat. In the meantime, can I introduce, sort of get Mike, please? Mike, can I sort of get your thoughts which would be really helpful, just to kickstart the conversation on the challenges you have in your region, please.
Yes, thanks. So one of the risks that's coming up across our region is the switch to ICSs, so integrated care systems. And in our region, we're looking at whether we have single organisation, 2 organisations, whether they're umbrellas, whether these stick to places, localities, rather than anything else. And I really wanted to know whether there's anyone in the room that's got similar issues they're facing. Hopefully there'll be someone in the room that's already gone through this process a bit further ahead than we are, to actually give us some advice on what may happen. Well, one of the issues we don't know is whether we'll be merged into one huge PMO across the whole of Norfolk rather than being with our individual little organisations. So I'd like to open up to anyone to offer anything on that.
Does anyone have any thoughts? I mean, within Northwest London at the moment, we also embarking on that transition at the moment. And what we have is we've just recently obviously become a CCG, so 8 different CCGs merging into one Northwest London CCG. So, and then also now working towards that transition to ICS. So we are, you know, there's nothing affirmative or concrete. We are also working through the process, and there are ongoing discussions around that from, you know, the very senior leads at the moment. Has anyone got any further thoughts? Pam, Agatha, can you help us with comments from the chat, please?
Justina, I see Henry has raised his hand, I believe.
Okay. Oh, I can't see it from here.
That's all right, Justina. So Mike, I mean, obviously, you know, in North Central London, we're going through the same. I think that consolidation is inevitable. I think it would bring, you know, the NHS goes through cycles, doesn't it, of you know, developing mega organizations only to slim, you know, to then disaggregate them again and then to consolidate them again. So it's not that we haven't seen this before. I think we should expect some element of consolidation. I think there could be benefits to having merged project and delivery teams, especially on agendas such as integration of care. The great thing about Project Futures, and I know I like bang on about the benefits of it, is that if we have consistency and people recognise, you know, a consistent framework, then everyone's sort of at a common point when you come together. So I personally would quite like to see a bit more collaborative working in our patch. One of our big challenges at the moment is governance, because everybody is standing up their own separate governance. So we have our own internal programme governance, there's wider UCLH governance, there's North Central London governance, there's London region governance. So we're also getting a little bit governanced out as well, and people spending quite a lot of time in meetings. But again, I guess that's one of the challenges we're working through, and people have recognised it.
That's good. How do we manage it, though? I think the thoughts coming through my head, I shouldn't be talking too much. I should let people, it's an interactive session. But I think this is such a topical issue. How do we manage it, though, so that we're not competing amongst ourselves in terms of the talent pool that we have? So, for instance, you're going through the process. We are going through the process. Of course, we would want, you know, and I don't know how huge the talent pool is, because oftentimes what we've had is we have people who are more clinical being shoved into project management. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have the skills and experiences to do it. Okay, so I'll shut up now and hear from others. Do we have anything on the charts? I'm getting some.
No, not yet.
No, not yet. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add to what we're talking about?
Can I just add? Sorry, someone's put their hand up, so I spoke. Can I just add? Are any project teams involved in these settings up, or is everything happening elsewhere? Because certainly I've not been approached to be involved in making sure it's a project that's delivered rather than just an organisational thing.
Within Northwest London, that I've not heard of any project team being set up to do it at the moment. It's just sort of more high level discussions from these CCG leads. I don't know if it's the same elsewhere.
I see Gareth's got his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, I think we're in a similar position to both yourselves and Henry in terms of the Stoke and Staffordshire position. So we are seeing more collaboration. So I was on a system savings workshop earlier in the week, and we are seeing more collaboration. We are seeing people across the ICS being, I guess, more willing and open to build on the response to COVID. So the collaboration worked in the response to COVID, and they're keen to build on that. Some of the challenges that I see is that we are still a bunch of separate organisations, and there's still separate agendas. Although we want to bring that together within the ICS, I think that the challenge is putting that as Henry mentioned, the governance and the control over the top, which I don't think we've got at the moment. I think that people are keen to try and get us there, but I don't think we've got a vision as to how that will happen. So I was in a meeting yesterday, as an example, talking about an expansion of advice and guidance. Now we've got a project happening in our trust to roll out Consultant Connect. But what I don't understand is how on the CCG side of our patch, that collaboration's working to make sure that the pathways are being developed, that the pre-referral work is being developed to align with what we're seeing as our problem areas in the trust. So I think it's a matter of time, and we are seeing that shift, but I don't think there's the answers at the moment. And I think that's where, like Henry said, that's where we come in, and that's where this support and this network can start to have a real impact.
That's great. Thank you, Gareth. Okay, so is someone saying something in the background? No? Okay, that's great. Okay, Mike, it doesn't seem like
we've got a discussion point come up in the chat.
Okay.
We'll share. So Alina's put down a problem or challenge in our area is the operational teams wanting PMO support and then slapping a badge of project on everything. And then when it comes to discipline and associated project documents, they don't want to engage and see it as a burden. I think we can all agree that happens quite a lot. Yeah.
It does. So I guess it's now looking at how we know this happens a lot, but any thoughts on how we've always sort of addressed it within our different areas? I think from my experience, I have definitely experienced that. I end up, doing the project documentation for the operational team, because without that, I tease out the information and they just do the appropriate documentation. Without that, it sort of stalls the project. And if it becomes too challenging and too difficult, I just I put it on the risk register and then I flag it up. So I don't know if any other people have thoughts around how they do what they do to address such similar challenges.
I can see Henry has raised his hand again.
Okay.
Yeah, just say
Please go
what the approach we're taking at the moment is we're buddying. So instead of going sort of like all or nothing, so letting the operational teams do their own thing versus then, sort of like our transformation team taking over, we're sort of operating a buddy system so that we are aligning project managers with different teams, different projects, different initiatives, so that they can bring some of the discipline without overwhelming the operational team, but also help upskill them a bit. but it means that we can also spread our precious resource a little bit more thinly as well. So we're helping people on service and pathway redesign projects using that model, and it's quite effective, because the other day I was with our diabetes and endocrinology team, and they were saying we're not used to having anyone helping us. So, you know, it's been a really positive experience, but we can then also keep some of the delivery discipline in place, but without it becoming too much of a burden. So it's sort of, we're operating this sort of hybrid at the moment, which is, you know, an interesting approach to trial. It's early days yet, though. It might all go horribly wrong still, but you never know. It might just work.
That's helpful. Okay, Mike, please.
Yeah. Sorry, yes. We in some ways do a slightly similar thing, and we sort of push some requests back to people and say it's a local project. So we grade projects. Are they a local project? Do they need central resource? But there is always support available. But one of the things we've done alongside is we've put together what we call our Quality Champions program, and that is where people just spend 4 days, 1 day a month on a training course, and they bring a project idea with them, and we support them actually to learn some of the basics of project management and change and that sort of thing. So we're creating quite a bit of expertise within the organisation to be able to do the smaller projects people by themselves, and that's working really quite well.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Mike. I think someone else got their RP. Sorry, I don't know who RP is. Ryan, is it?
Rachel.
Is Rachel? Rachel, please.
Hi, that's okay. It should be coming up with my full name. There we go. Technology. So just a bit of a reflection on the previous comments, actually, but in NHS Digital, the operations teams are effectively the IT operations teams, but the kind of structure that we have is whereby a project or a program that will be stood up to deliver a new data service, let's say. One of the things that the central PMO does is make sure that they are hooked up with the IT operations, which is where that project or program will go when it ceases to be a project or a program. So it becomes a business as usual type service delivery, and making sure that we are designing that business as usual, that day-to-day operation service with resources from all sides of the across the organisation, subject matter experts, as well as the IT and the service designers. So we kind of feed in right from business case stage what that future day-to-day is going to look like, and we start thinking about that as early as possible. I'm not saying it's perfect, as I think others have admitted, but it's recognition that there's a need to think about the future before you kind of deliver what is in that project. And I think from a buy-in perspective or engagement perspective, that does seem to work.
Thank you, Rachel. Yanis, please.
Yes, on a relevant note about the PMO support that various other operational teams are asking, I see a comment from Massimo Morelli, which I want to echo. So they mentioned that it is important to establish clear boundaries and the difference between project management or, project managers, what project or program managers do versus being just I like the comment, a glorified admin. So I suppose it relates, to the core of these events' purposes, like actually, spreading out the value and the added value that, broader operational and business teams can actually get through this specific skill set that the project and the program management community brings. So yeah, a very relevant comment as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I think straight away that comment just reminded me of the capability framework and being able to sort of
exactly
adopt that within organization. Is a shame, there's still a lot of work to do in terms of, having them embedded in organizations, because it's not mandatory at the moment. But I guess that's the way to go. That's great. Thank you for that, Yanis. Any other comments around regional challenges before I think we've sort of delved into problem solving as well, but
Rachel, I think,
Rachel?
has her hand again.
Okay.
Or was it a legacy?
She's on mute.
Apologies. Yes, it was a legacy hand. I'm rubbish
Okay.
to lower it. Apologies.
Okay, that's great. Okay, is that all for our regional challenges?
Yeah.
I can see another
see a hand.
hand. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too, Philip.
Justin, can I jump in and just say one thing we've been talking about in our PMO of late is, and it comes back to sort of Yanis's and Massimiliano's point about what is a PMO, who are we, what do we do? And we've tried to come up with a simple sort of emblem at Surrey and Borders around what we do, and it sort of explain a little bit. And we came up with sort of governance, standards, support and information, because we generally find that most colleagues come to a PMO and say, what are the Trust's core priorities? Who do I need to go to for project management support? And all of those typical questions that we all get. And I suppose that balance between sort of the programs that we're trying to manage, and my point that I want to make comes back to, I guess, the ICSs and our role within the governance between that. And one thing we've been doing in my trust is trying to work out the long-term plan, deliverables and objectives, which are so high level and so strategic, and then match those to actually the annual plan and the list of programs that we have, and actually what we're doing in terms of those benefits and deliverables from a program perspective, and then feeding that down. I guess I hear all the time, everything is a priority. So everything's urgent and everything's important. And we're, by definition, we're working in that kind of chaos sort of quadrant. And really what we want to be doing, I suppose, is actually doing that prioritization, because if everything is a priority, then nothing's a priority really. So we've been spending a lot of time trying to focus down what our core programs of activity are, and then trying to realign our resources behind that. And actually that being a good platform in which to have better connected conversations with the ICS, and not necessarily trying to do that sort of hand in glove. And I think that's probably because I guess there are many questions around it and many things that are unclear, but actually where we can find the common ground with the golden thread aspects of our work, then that's a really good starting point and a good basis for the discussion.
Okay. That's interesting. I guess one of the things that what I guess from what you said, Ryan, the thought in my head at the moment is around if you don't have a very senior project person on the table, around the table when they're having this high level discussions, how does that filter down? How do we identify what role we will be playing in terms of, for instance, this same, this ICSs again? I think for me, that's always somebody, there has to be a senior project director or something, around the table when these discussions are hard. I think that's one thing. Another thing is that I've observed is, whilst the priorities obviously are identified, I don't know whether that happens in your area, whether the priorities in actual fact, they're core projects, whether you actually find out that, do you wind down these projects at all? So I find that, let's say pre-COVID, we had itemized priorities or programs of work that we were all working on. And then post-COVID, it's like with the coming up of the people plan, we are having new priorities come up again. And then it gets, like you said, it gets so chaotic. The former priorities pre-COVID have not been wound down. And then now we are developing new sets of priorities. I don't know whether people have similar, experiences. How do you deal with all of that? Well, I guess this is just me thinking out aloud. Yeah. Do we have any more comments? Because I can hear.
We have one comment from the chat. Alina is asking Ryan if he could share his governance boundaries he mentioned.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd just like a little bit more information on what we mean by that. So governance boundaries in terms of sort of the structures, or governance boundaries in terms of the process that we went through around our annual planning this year. And what I'm not quite clear as to the exact process, Alina says. Yeah, so we started our process probably back in November. The goalposts have moved considerably with sort of financial budgets and our returns. So we developed something called Star Chamber, which probably won't be new to a number of you, but we had a Star Chamber session with each of our divisions to ask them what they were doing. So what their business as usual pressures were, what their recovery plans were, as well as what their future transformational plans were. And we asked them to present that. And I guess sort of the real work happened in the preparation, because it was only an hour's meeting and it was with our executive. So it was almost like, it wasn't quite Dragon's Den style, but it was probably a bit more friendly than that. But we asked for priorities to be put forward, and off the back of that, within the parameters and the financial budgets that we have, and then actually off the back of that we compared that to the priorities that exec had set. So we tried to do a balance between a sort of a bottom up and a top down approach. And actually what we've done in the meantime is we've actually got a system where we record our projects on, and we make the links that way. So it's a piece of software with Power BI, and we've run some really interesting analysis from that and some thematic work. And off the back of that, we've come up with 8 core programs with 45 key projects out of the back of that. And so our steer really is that everything should be relating back to those programs. And if they're not, I suppose there's a question as to why we're doing them and what value they bring. So that was the process that we went through.
That's great. Thank you, Ryan. And on that note, we best be moving along. So I think we've talked quite extensively. We've highlighted some of the regional challenges that we have. We've also talked about some of the areas on how we sort of are solving the regional challenges that we have. Can I now hand over to Rachel to take us through a little bit more on problem solving? Rachel, please.
Thanks very much, Justina. That's a really good segue, and thanks very much for the previous chat. So I'm experimenting slightly with technology today, you'll be pleased to know. Following on from the previous session, definitely stepping outside my comfort zone a little bit, not necessarily with technology in general, but certainly with this particular technology. So what I am going to do is attempt to share a link. I will put it in the chat. This is a link to the platform which you'll need to open a web browser, a browser window for. And it's the menteecom, Mentimeter, for those of you that have seen this before. So hopefully I should be sharing the image of what you should be seeing on your browser window. Could somebody give me a nod as and when that appears to be working, if indeed it is? I'm just going to switch my video off because I think it's causing it to go into a bit of a flat spin.
It's fine, Rachel, we can see it.
Yeah, you got it. Brilliant. So, code that you need to enter. Oh gosh, that didn't work, did it? I've just tried to paste it in the chat. It's 7168 1308. So 7168 1308, and it should be at the top of the slide on screen as well if you're struggling to read it from the chat. So has everybody managed to get that in a browser window now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant, excellent. That first hurdle over. So the first question that I want to pose to you, and hopefully this will have moved on the slide on your slide deck, is what is your understanding of problem solving? And the question is kind of around is it always something that you've got to address? Is it something that sometimes you just have to let it be, in the words of the Beatles? Is it something that you feel responsibility for? Do you understand who ownership is for problem solving? And maybe something about the impact it has, either on yourselves, your stakeholders, the wider NHS, within the region. Is there something specific? How does that sort of manifest itself? And when you're faced with a problem, what's your kind of immediate reaction? I suppose there's a lot. I've suggested a lot of things there, but just whatever springs to mind. And hopefully you've got the opportunity on your slide deck to submit answers. You can submit as many as you like, and they should be showing on screen fairly shortly. Now, I'm having a technical breakdown now because I can't see the responses.
Rachel, can you see our responses?
I am really struggling to do that, and that's incredibly embarrassing. Just bear with me 1 second.
Would it be possible to write them in the chat in the interim?
I think we might have to. Really sorry about that. That was
okay.
We just do it quickly.
Okay.
So I think my first vote for problem solving is addressing technology issues on the fly. So if anybody would like to vote for that as a topic,
I'll vote for it.
We do have a few comments in the chat box.
Yes, I was just looking through those. Thank you. So certainly, Alina, problem solving to adapt to carry on. Yep. Certainly one approach is just to bury your head in the sand. The other is to figure out a way through it. So both are equally familiar to me. There's comments about proactive and preventative, which is an interesting take on it. I know sometimes and particularly the past 12-15 months or so, firefighting has been the only way of responding and reacting and fixing problems. But wherever possible, and I guess our roles as project managers is partly to be proactive and think about the problems before they emerge to some extent. Finding an acceptable approach moving forward and away from the problem. Is there anything you want to expand on that one, Alina?
Alina, don't be shy. You can talk to us if you want. It'd be nice to hear you. She's there.
That's okay. No problem. Yeah, just fix it so as not to repeat. To some extent, this kind of brings me back to some of the risk management principles as well, whereby, you know, there are some scenarios where you need to harness an opportunity rather than preventing a risk. So sometimes, you know, what appears as a problem can have positive outcomes. I know it's always difficult to imagine those scenarios, particularly when we've been firefighting as much as we have so far. First reaction is, oh gosh, yep, that's very honest, and I think people would relate to that. Is the problem an issue or a risk to the project or programme? Working with people to develop mitigating actions to solve it. So yep, absolutely, that's a great summary really of what we do as day to day, I guess, as project managers, project professionals. Looking at root causes, yep. Taking the time to step back, which sometimes we don't always get, do we? You know, sometimes these are time sensitive problems that we've got to solve. Project is a controlled way of doing it, which is yeah, my preference always. Mike, what can be achieved? What was your thinking behind that one?
That's with problems often comes it just can't be done. So I'm always of the opinion there's always a solution somewhere. It might not be the one what you were first thinking of, but there is always a solution. So what can be achieved was what I put in for that. Yeah,
so there's a little bit of the harnessing the positives, I suppose, out of it rather than just fixing the negatives. Project management role to bring subject matter experts together to facilitate discussion as a neutral party. That's interesting. Yep, again, kind of going back a little bit to the capability framework idea of us as diplomats, dare I say. Problem, something to address. Yep. Problem solving is the approach you follow to solve the problem. Yep. Can't take any objection with that one. Everyone's responsibility. Where do I get help? Hopefully, this network will be one of those places that people can come to more and more. Apologies, I'm not going to get through all of those. Thank you very much, and I don't want to eat into the last 5 minutes because I know there's a couple of other things that we want to cover off. Just on that subject of sharing the approach to fixing the problem, could I hand over to Gareth just for a quick run through one of his approaches, which was quite successful, well, very successful, should I say, Gareth?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. It touches on a lot of what people have said in terms of, you know, each problem's different, and depending on the situation, the response to the problem will be different. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, if he had 6 hours to cut down a tree, he'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening his axe. And obviously, if we all had that sort of level of preparation and planning, then that would be great. Clearly, we don't always get that, and COVID's been a prime example. During COVID, one of the early things that I was asked to support or to lead on was our trust's implementation of Attend Anywhere for our video consultation for outpatients. And we got contacted by NHS-IE in April, and we wanted to try and go live in May. So through this network, I knew that one of the other regional leads up in Mid Yorks, Mike, had been asked to implement their rollout as well. They'd been contacted as an early adopter a few weeks prior. So the first thing I did was pick up the phone and rang Mike and said, Mike, where are you? How far down the line are you? What's gone wrong? What's worked well? What's your approach? Have you got a project plan? What, who are your stakeholders? Effectively, just to get as much of that information as possible, as early as possible, to get me further down the line as quickly as possible. And then linking in with other people who were implementing the solution through another network group that we got stood up through the NHS England connections that we had. And ultimately, we were able to roll out the solution across our trust quickly, but in a controlled manner, which was the key to it continuing to be a success, and it's continuing to grow and develop now. Just very quickly, off the back of that regional network that we set up to support each other, we also had to reprocure the solution at very short notice at the end of the financial year. So we, through that regional network, we formed the procurement collaboration, and ultimately there was 20 trusts involved that managed to procure an extension of the solution for 12 months in a joint collaboration, and that saved several million across the region in terms of what it would have cost if we were all to go and procure the system individually. And that's something that we're now developing further in terms of our regional digital plan for looking at other solutions and other products and a way of doing that moving forward. I don't want to take up any more time because I'm very conscious that we're running towards the end of the session. So if there are any questions, then feel free, but I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Gareth. That's really helpful. Very helpful. Thank you. So let's quickly go into the power of networking, and I will ask Yanis to please kindly lead on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Justina. So we've heard about the collaboration, and a relevant topic is the power of networks. So I know that Nick has an interesting story to say about the power of collaboration. So can I ask Nick to tell us his experience and how actually networking can happen in practice?
Yeah, thank you, Yanis. This won't take long at all. But essentially, in the southeast region, we're probably the region that's furthest behind with regards to getting a network together and having meetings. So we had our first meeting last week. It was quality rather than quantity. We had 7 people representing 5 organisations, and we had 1 hour just to introduce each other and talk about what our challenges were, very similar to what we've just done now. But just in that single hour, we managed to come up with 4 sort of key themes that we were all suffering for the challenges for. I mean, Phil's here on this call as well as part of the region. I'm sure I speak for sort of, him as well as myself, that the relationships that we're starting to embed in the Southeast region. I mean, I've managed to steal some stuff from Philip. I've managed to steal some stuff from the South Coast Ambulance Service. So it is reaping benefits already after just 1 hour. So having 7 people creating those benefits, if we can extend that team across the Southeast region, it's going to be incredible. And we had people from all walks of the business in that meeting. We had one comment that I'm just a project manager, I'm not sure what I can bring to the table. But we made, it's important not what you bring to the table, or what you take away from the table. So yeah, the power of the network in the Southeast is really starting to reap benefits. But just listening to what Gareth's just been talking about there, and touching base with Mike, we need to just be careful that we don't keep things siloed to our regions, that we're sharing stuff interregionally as well. So anything that we're coming up with in the sort of the Southeast region, we need to have some kind of forum that we can share that nationally as well with the other regions. So yeah, thank you very much for everybody in the Southeast region. Thank you very much for everybody on this call today, because there's been some really interesting stuff to take away. And I'm going to be a real pain and contact you people outside of this meeting and make a real pain of myself over the next few months. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Really exciting to hear that within an hour, and it doesn't need to be like a big bang type of event that normally many people would go, to actually start establishing some networks like conferences, webinars. Obviously, now that everyone is working in a remote way, but I know I'm conscious of time. I don't know whether there are any comments on the chat about way people try to, to expand and develop their networks. Is there anything there worth mentioning?
No, nothing about developing it.
Probably not. Okay. So yeah, I think we've reached the time to close the session. Really, really interesting to hear all of the participants and the attendants kind of experiences in these key kind of areas that we discussed about: creative problem solving, power of networking, and all of the other. I hand it over to Justina to wrap it up.
Okay.
And we're gonna, definitely check the comments and get back to you.
Thank you, Yanis. I just have a quick question for Christine or Jocelyn. Either of you could respond. So I think for me, one of the lessons now that what I've picked up that's really helpful is that collaboration in terms of what's happening in your area that I'm going through. Do we have a singular place where we can sort of ask the question, I'm doing this in my region, or I'm leading this. Is there anyone who is working on a similar thing? Because we don't all know each other very well yet. Mm-hmm. So is there a place where we can ask that question so that colleagues can, always sort of respond back?
Yes. So the plan is to use our online community of practice, so the healthcare project delivery community, which is on Knowledge Hub. So we have a PMO specific interest group on there already, and the idea is to actually utilise that group, and you can create your own separate folders if that's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. We did say that we wouldn't have a specific regional folder, obviously to encourage that kind of sharing of resources and information, etc. Mm-hmm. So by all means, have a look what's in the group already, add to that, comment on that. But yeah, feel free to start new forum discussions, pose those questions you want to find answers to, and the members then will obviously be able to respond respectively.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Jocelyn. I think this would be the segment, Jocelyn, where we have you talk about the NHS futures. Just if there are people on this call who don't know about it, so I'll leave that to you now.
No problem, thank you. So yeah, we just wanted to briefly show you a couple of the resource links. So we'll actually share this afterwards, but please feel free to go and have a look. We've got different platforms available. Obviously, we're trying to get, kind of spread the word on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Just mentioned the Knowledge Hub and YouTube. So we're trying to, as I say, kind of get information out on all of those different platforms, because as we know, obviously we want to reach the wider audience as possible. Always feel free to contact the team at NHS Project Futures, and we'll kind of pick up that and we'll signpost wherever we can and link you up with colleagues as required. And then we just wanted to let you know about our follow-up kind of one-day Compass events. So these are going to be quarterly and they'll lead up to the bigger event in February, hopefully. So just dates for your diary to keep in mind, the 7th of September and the 30th of November. Also, just to quickly mention, if you do have time, if you can just bob onto the platform, and underneath the section for this session, there'll be a survey link, or it should say feedback, and there's literally 3 questions, and it should literally take you like 30 seconds to complete. And so it'd be really helpful if you could go on there and just respond to those questions. And that's it from me. I'll leave you with the parting game code if you're taking part. But thank you very much. It's been a really beneficial conversation today, and it's lovely to meet you all.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I think we've ended that session, the session really well. Thank you to everyone who's contributed. We really appreciate you. I definitely have a lot of things that I have learned today. Thank you so much. And so on that note, we will be ending the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.